Welcome to Pulse of the Planet. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In a decision that will echo through American history, the Supreme Court has delivered a verdict that will be studied and debated for generations to come. The gravity of this moment cannot be overstated, as the highest court in the land has stepped in to draw a clear line on the limits of presidential authority. The Supreme Court has struck down President Trump's sweeping tariffs, a signature of his economic agenda and a cornerstone of his administration's approach to global trade. These tariffs, which affected billions of dollars in goods, were fiercely debated both in Washington and across the country. The ruling challenges the very limits of presidential power, sending shockwaves from the White House to Wall Street and global capitals. Investors, business leaders, and foreign governments are now scrambling to assess the impact of this dramatic shift in U.S. policy. Legal experts say the decision is not just about tariffs, but about the fundamental checks and balances that define American democracy. The court's opinion is already being hailed as a landmark in constitutional law. The case, American Importers Alliance v. United States, became a flashpoint for debates over executive authority and constitutional restraint. It drew intense scrutiny from advocacy groups, lawmakers, and ordinary citizens concerned about the concentration of power in the executive branch. The decision dismantles a central pillar of Trump's second-term strategy, forcing a dramatic reset of U.S. trade policy. The administration must now reconsider its approach, as key elements of its economic vision are called into question. The court reasserts that the power to levy tariffs and regulate commerce belongs to Congress, not the executive acting alone. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are already signaling plans to re-examine trade laws and restore congressional oversight. This verdict marks a defining constitutional moment, fundamentally altering the balance between the president, Congress, and the courts. It is a powerful reminder of the enduring strength of the separation of powers. As the nation absorbs the consequences, one thing is clear: the relationship among the branches of government has been irrevocably changed. The Supreme Court's decision will shape the future of American governance, setting a precedent that will influence presidents, lawmakers, and citizens for years to come. To understand today's ruling, we must revisit the roots of Trump's tariff strategy, a hallmark of both his presidencies. Trump's first term saw aggressive tariffs on China and even U.S. allies, justified under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, citing national security. Critics argued this was a pretext for economic protectionism, bypassing Congress and sparking global retaliation. While some U.S. industries saw short-term gains, many manufacturers faced higher costs, farmers lost export markets, and consumers paid more. The promised manufacturing boom never fully materialized, and the trade deficit persisted. Despite mixed results, tariffs became central to Trump's political brand and his America First message. His second-term tariffs, announced in April 2025, were meant as a final push in his trade war. Today's Supreme Court decision brings that campaign to an abrupt halt. The legal battle focused on the separation of powers and the Constitution's assignment of trade authority to Congress. Plaintiffs argued the president lacked clear legal authority to impose such sweeping tariffs, insisting only Congress can make such major economic decisions. The administration claimed broad discretion under emergency statutes, framing tariffs as vital for national security. At the heart of the case was the major questions doctrine, the idea that only Congress can authorize actions of vast economic and political significance. Lower courts sided with the challengers, finding the president had overstepped. The Supreme Court was asked not whether tariffs are wise, but who gets to decide. Their answer would determine if the executive could wield this economic weapon alone, or if Congress must reclaim its authority. The stakes, the very structure of American government. In a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court delivered a sharp rebuke to the administration's claims of expansive executive power. The majority opinion declared the president's unilateral tariffs unconstitutional, reaffirming that taxing imports is a legislative function. The court invoked the major questions doctrine, insisting only Congress can authorize such sweeping economic changes. The ruling invalidates the new tariffs and casts doubt on similar past actions. Dissenting justices warned this could limit presidential flexibility in global crises, but the majority prevailed. The decision curtails the president's role in trade, reserving broad tariff policy for Congress. It's a landmark precedent, reasserting Article 1's grant of legislative power. The message: the power to tax imports belongs to the people's representatives. The economic reaction was immediate. Global markets surged, relieved by the end of tariff uncertainty. U.S. businesses, especially those reliant on imports, welcomed the ruling as a victory for stability and free enterprise. Industry groups say the decision will prevent higher costs, protect jobs, and keep U.S. companies competitive. The threat of retaliatory tariffs and damage to American exporters has faded. For consumers, the court's action averts a new wave of inflation, preserving purchasing power at a critical time. However, domestic industries like steel and aluminum, which sought protection, are disappointed, warning of renewed foreign competition. Labor unions argue the ruling leaves workers vulnerable to unfair trade. Policymakers now face the challenge of supporting these sectors without triggering trade wars. The long-term task crafting a balanced, constitutionally sound trade policy. Politically, the ruling strikes at the very core of Trump's identity and the ambitions he set for a second term. It's not just a legal setback, it's a direct challenge to the way he has wielded presidential power, and to the vision he sold to his supporters. The president, long known for his bold unilateral approach to both domestic and foreign policy, now faces a dramatic loss of leverage at home and abroad. Allies and adversaries alike are recalibrating, watching closely to see how he responds to this new reality. Inside the White House, anger and defiance are palpable. Advisors scramble to craft a response, while Trump himself is expected to denounce the decision as a politically motivated attack, fuel for his ongoing narrative of being targeted by the establishment. For his supporters, this moment may serve as further evidence of a so-called deep state conspiracy working against him. Meanwhile, critics and opponents hail the ruling as a crucial defense of the rule of law and a necessary check on executive power. The administration now faces a pivotal choice: attempt to work with a divided and often hostile Congress to craft new trade laws, or risk plunging the country into further constitutional clashes that could define the remainder of Trump's presidency. For Congress, the ruling is both a restoration of its constitutional power and a daunting new responsibility. Lawmakers must now grapple with the challenge of forging a coherent, effective trade policy, one that can withstand both political pressure and global scrutiny. The decision also bolsters the Supreme Court's image as an independent arbiter, reinforcing its role as a check on executive authority. Yet, even as it asserts its independence, the court's ruling deepens the already sharp partisan divides across the nation. The future of U.S. trade, and the very nature of the presidency itself, has been fundamentally reshaped. As the dust settles, America stands at a crossroads, with its institutions, leaders, and people all facing a new and uncertain chapter. Legal scholars call this one of the most significant separation of powers cases in decades. The ruling has sparked intense debate among experts, with far-reaching implications for the balance of power in the U.S. government. Harvard's Lawrence Tribe hails it as a vital course correction, signaling a trend to rein in the imperial presidency. He believes this decision marks a pivotal moment in constitutional law, emphasizing the need for checks and balances. He argues that major economic policies must come from Congress, not unilateral executive action. This perspective underscores the importance of legislative oversight in shaping the nation's economic future. Economist Amelia Chen says the ruling stabilizes global markets and reduces inflation risks, but warns U.S.-China tensions remain unresolved. She highlights the potential for increased economic stability, yet cautions about ongoing geopolitical challenges. Historian Doris Kearns Goodwin sees the decision as part of a historic pendulum swing, restoring congressional power after periods of executive dominance. She notes that this shift is part of a broader historical pattern of power rebalancing. Not all experts agree. John Yoo warns the ruling could hamstring presidents in fast-moving crises, arguing Congress is too slow for urgent trade disputes. He stresses the need for executive agility in addressing immediate threats. The debate continues. How should 18th century constitutional checks adapt to 21st century global challenges? Scholars and policymakers alike grapple with this question, seeking a balance between tradition and modernity. The ruling's impact will echo in law, economics, and politics for years to come. Its effects will be felt across various sectors, influencing future legal interpretations and policy decisions. America stands at a constitutional crossroads. The decisions made today will shape the nation's trajectory for generations, highlighting the enduring importance of constitutional governance. The Supreme Court's decision is making headlines worldwide, with most U.S. trading partners expressing relief. The EU, Japan, and South Korea praised the ruling for restoring stability and upholding trade norms. China's response is measured, viewing the decision as a shift in U.S. strategy, not an end to competition. The ruling also affects global energy markets. Trump's threatened tariffs on oil producers are now off the table, shifting U.S. strategy toward diplomacy. For Canada and Mexico, the decision is especially welcome, ensuring stability for the integrated North American supply chain. A Canadian official calls it a return to sanity, allowing businesses to focus on growth, not political risk. Attention now turns to Congress and the future of U.S. trade agreements. This Supreme Court decision opens a new chapter, restoring trade authority to Congress and demanding legislative leadership. Lawmakers must now move beyond partisanship to craft a modern, effective, and constitutional trade policy. The public, too, must engage. Trade policy affects every American's wallet and future. Civic groups, business leaders, and citizens must demand transparency and accountability from their representatives. The Constitution's balance of power is not static, it requires vigilance and participation. The court has done its part, now Congress and the people must do theirs. The challenge: turn this constitutional moment into a more just and prosperous economic future. The path forward is in our hands.